Okay, good morning or afternoon if you are my 6th hour class. I am going to be showing you how you now take your graphic organizer completed for your two-voice poem and then transform that into the format for your final draft of your poem. So you're going to need a couple things open. You will need your finished graphic organizer, so see that I have all of the columns completed except for I didn't find any common symbols or metaphors because those were pretty unique to the individual text, but I have each part completed in some detail, okay? And I'm going to open up a brand new document where I'm going to be creating my poem. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to create a giant table. So you're going to go to table, insert table, and you'll need it to be 3 different columns, and I'm just going to create a bunch of rows. I may end up adding more or deleting them later, but right now this is just getting the layout set up. Okay. On this side, I am going to be putting everything from my Martin Luther King speech, and on the other side, I will be putting my Nelson Mandela information, and in the middle is going to have everything in common, just kind of like your graphic organizer was set up. But what I'm going to be doing now is taking my notes and putting it into poetic language and not just leaving it in my note format. So you can do this in 2 different ways. You could have it open on a different screen and then just be going to your document and typing out your thoughts, or you could copy it, paste it in, but you are not going to leave this as is because I will get mad at you. Okay, so I am going to take each side, I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it, except for my middle commonalities, I am going to put that 1 step below, and I will show you why. Okay, so here are my differences. Here's what they have in common. Right, I can do that again just to kind of get the setup going. I will copy this. I'll go to this side. And I will go and I will grab my middle information. And again, I'm going to not put it here. I'm going to put it 1 below. Okay, so I am not going to turn in a poem that is just notes. Okay, you would be skipping an entire step. So what I'm going to do is I would go through and I would finish doing the layout, all right? And I'm going to go through and now I'm going to make this somehow poetic language so that it is interesting to my reader and they're not just reading a bunch of lists and not understanding what they mean or what they have in common. So I have my setting here, and right now I'm just going to make it a sentence, and I'm going to say it is August 1963 in Washington, D.C. Okay, I may go back later when I'm going to edit this and add in something like it is a humid August, or it is a humid day in August 1963 in Washington, D.C. Hey, and maybe I'll even throw in something like the sun is beating down on us in the heat of the day. I don't know. I might go back later and kind of play around with that, but I'm just going to get my ideas there. Okay, I'm going to go to this side and do the same thing. It is 1994 in South Africa. Okay, right now I'm realizing actually this is a little boring, and later on I'm going to go back to that and jazz it up, but right now I'm just getting my thoughts so that they flow neatly. Okay, Now in my notes I see that this is important because this is where the federal government is located. This is what they had in common because both of these people were giving speeches, they were getting a lot of people's attention, and they were doing this in a place where the federal government was going to be there and they were going to be heard. Okay, so I might say the federal government is here. And again, remember your common things. You're going to be thinking thematically, what do they have in common? And we know that these two people both wanted some sort of change. So I am going to come up with a phrase for myself that I like. And I'm deciding it's going to be we will see change because I'm thinking I'm going to use this as repetition in my middle columns to kind of create the point and really pound it home. All right, so I see this part here. I am going to now transform these little notes into some sort of poetic language, and I know that I've planned this out, so I know what I'm going to say. I'm going to use an image like this. A sea of 200,000 marchers is crying out. The sea is crying for civil rights. Okay, I'm going to use a simile. Like a sturdy wall, we stand against unfair treatment. Okay, this is more interesting than leaving notes because I have things like a sea of marchers is crying. I have a simile here, like a sturdy wall. I'm imagining all those protesters standing up for their rights, but I'm still making the same point. There are all these people there, they're protesting against the unfair treatment, but I'm doing this in an interesting way. Now I'm going to go to this side. Okay, they are celebrating. So we have a different scene going on here. I'm going to say we have used our strength to make a difference, and now, like a rising sun, because he keeps making those symbols about rebirth, right? And a new day. So I'm going to say like rising sun, celebrate newborn liberty. Okay, so here I have what's happening in each of my different places, but I'm saying it in a more interesting way than saying there's a bunch of people gathered and they're really excited because things are happening. Woohoo. No, now I'm going to use things like similes. I'm going to use really cool images to make the same points. Okay, I see my middle column. Thematically, I'm looking at that word equality and liberty because that's what they have in common. And I'm going to say this in an interesting way. I will say we have craved equality and liberty. And I am going to use that same repetition. We will see change. So you may decide on a phrase or a line that you think thematically really connects your two novels, and you may decide that poetically this is a good chance to have repetition throughout that middle column. Okay, now I would then go on and continue this process. I would go through my notes, I would put them in place, right? And then I would go in and I would change the wording into really interesting, beautiful, poetic language so that my teacher was really happy and that my readers were interested and not bored when they're reading my comparisons, because no one wants to just look at your notes, they want to read your beautiful writing. Now, here comes the cool part. We know that this is going to be formatted into a really cool poem. Okay, I'm going to go up top, I'm going to give it a title. Okay, I am going to title this Voices of Change because I'm so awesome. And I'm going to come up with a title that is linked to my theme. Okay, so I'm going to call it Voices of Change, right? And now I'm going to go to my table. Up at Table, I'm going to go to Table Properties. And I'm going to go to Table Border, and where it's colored black, I am going to select white. Watch what happens. My borders have now disappeared, and now my poem is perfectly formatted to have each of those columns so that the reader would start here, their eyes would go here, and then comes the common things below, right? The table is still there. It's just, in a sense, invisible right now, okay? So the last thing you'll do is get rid of your table, and voila, you have a beautifully formatted poem. All right, so am I done? No, because I didn't finish going through each part of my graphic organizer, but you get a sense of the steps that you would then take, all right? So I'm going to change this back to black so that I can see this all. I can finish each part, and then I will get rid of my border so that it is formatted.